Hello there guys, welcome back to another video, and if you're new then thank you for checking out my video today. So today's video I'm aiming it at my TimeSplitters fan base and just general TimeSplitters fans out there. You'll notice on the screen in front of you, you see a picture of a timeline, and what this is basically an image that I've gone and created and put together for you. Um, and it's every single level from TimeSplitters 1, TimeSplitters 2, and TimeSplitters Future Perfect put into a big huge timeline of when those events of what happens in the level and so on happened. And as you can see, there are little arrows going out to each one and things like that. So before I get into depth and describe what everything is and what everything is and so on, I want to go over a few things first. So, I know many people, this includes my friends, people I know, so there'll probably be others out there, who have played TimeSplitters. They played all three, or maybe just two of them, or whatever, and they played certain levels, and they don't understand how certain things happen in one game, but in the other one, something else that is different that shouldn't really be happening is happening in the other one, because they don't look at the times of when these levels happen, so when the events that happen in these levels actually take place. Um, a big thing for this is the Kalos in Harry Tipper levels. Kalos is a huge thing that I know so many people sit there and are literally scratching their heads and are confused as hell about. I'm going to get to that in a bit, because that is one of the big things that this timeline right here will address and answer for you, because it is confusing, I will not deny it, but when I go through it on this timeline, it will all make sense and you will all understand why what happens happens. I'm trying not to say what happens, because else it would just destroy the point of me going over it later. But that was a brief overview of that. Second thing, you'll notice that not every single level appears as a picture on this map, on this timeline little map. So the reason for this is because mostly space, as you can tell, everything's quite crowded and in together and so on. This was the best I can make it, or else you wouldn't be able to see any of the pictures and things like that. And I wanted to include pictures because some people might not recognize certain levels, and if you have a picture, then you're more familiar with it. So that's why I included the pictures. But you'll notice that certain levels don't have their own picture. Right, so the reason for this is because they happen in exactly the same timeline period as one that does have a picture. So I'm going to take an example here of Scotland the Brave. As you can see, the picture there actually is from Scotland the Brave. But underneath that, there's also You Take the High Road and Future Perfect. Those are in the same section. They don't have their own pictures. They're in the same section because they happen at exactly the same time as Scotland the Brave happens. I needed to do it like this because else there really is not enough space to include things like that and spread them all over the place, and it wouldn't make as much sense, and it would be a bit of a mess and confuse the hell out of people, and I don't really want to do that too much. So that's why they're all included in one. So you'll understand that later on when I go through it a bit more. You'll notice that with Future Perfect levels, there's none of that with any of the other TimeSplitters games. It's just Future Perfect, other than the exception of at the very end, which I will get onto at the very end. Sorry about that. So, lastly, before I start, if anyone gets confused at all along the way when I go through each thing, or doesn't understand something or whatever, feel free to ask a question in the comments below. I will answer it as best as I can and try and help you out as much as I can. I want to try and get across the ability that everyone can understand how everything works in the TimeSplitters storyline, just by looking at this. And lastly, before we begin, if you want this image at all, I will include it in the description for you guys to go and get and download for yourselves. Because I know some people might like to keep this timeline so that they can refer back to it or whatever, rather than just clicking on the video. I understand that, so I will include it in the description of this video so you guys can go and download it and keep it. Otherwise, let's get on with it. Right, so I'm going to read out, first of all, the order in which each of these levels takes place, starting from the very far left and working our way up to the right. So, this is in order of their specific timeline date. Try and follow it on the screen if you can. If you can't, don't worry, I will be pointing them out later on. For now, I'm going to read out the list in order. So, here we go. So the first one we have is Wild West, which takes place in 1853. We then have Notre Dame, which takes place in 1895. We then have Aztec Ruins, which takes place in 1920. We then have Scotland the Brave, You Take the High Road, and Future Perfect happen in 1924. Followed then by Chicago in 1932. Then by Tomb in 1935. Then by Village in 1950. Then by Mansion, and just to clarify, that's Mansion from TimeSplitters 1, in case anyone gets slightly confused there, in 1965, followed then by The Russian Connection and Kalos Express in 1969, followed then by Chinese in 1970, followed then by Atom Smasher in 1972, then by Chemical Plant in 1985, then by Siberia from TimeSplitters 2. This is the story, remember, just to make sure people don't confuse it with the multiplayer map from Future Perfect, in 1990. Then by The Mansion of Madness and What Lies Below in 1994. Then by Docks in 2000. Then by Cyberden in 2005. Then by Neo Tokyo in 2019. Then by Planet X, this is TimeSplitters 1 Planet X, in 2020, then by Spaceways in 2035, followed then by Breaking and Entering in Eugenius Eugenics 2052, then by Machine Wars and Something to Chroma in 2243, followed then by Return to Planet X, which is from TimeSplitters 2 in 2280, followed then by Robot Factory in 2315, followed then by, lastly, Space Station Time to Split and The Hooded Man in 2401. So that was all of them in order, just going through them all for you. I don't know precisely how you guys want me to say the times. Like, I think it's probably easier for you guys to understand if I said something like 2401. But I could say something like 2401. I think it's better if I say 2401, so that's the way I'm going to do it for the video. So I hope you guys understand that. Right, so what I'm going to do now that I've gone through all of that, is I'm going to, first of all, point, as you can see my mouse here in the top left, at the picture of the specific level I'm going to be quickly going over, and say which game it's from, and then just explain the time, which is obvious anyway because it says it, and when it happens, like what happens and things like that. This is basically just to give you a brief overview of what happens in each level, which TimeSplitters game it comes from, when it happens, and also just to fill in a few little gaps in the story that people don't quite understand when certain levels link to others and things like that. I'm going to go through this reasonably quickly because I don't want this video to go on for too long. So if I rush through it, I hope you understand why, but I will try and go as slowly as I possibly can so that you guys can understand. And make sure you follow my mouse because it will tell you whereabouts I am. Right, so we're going to start from the first date, which I went in my list. We are going in the same list order, by the way. So we're going to start up here on the left. You can see my mouse. So the first level we have is Wild West, which happens in 1853. This level is from TimeSplitters 2. So what happens in this level is you have to go and find your friend, who is another outlaw like you, who's captured in jail, and you need to go and free them. Then after that you need to go and find the Colonel and kill him and retrieve the time crystal and escape. So I'll go through these briefly, guys, so don't expect a full in-depth talk about it, in case you were. The next level we're going for is Notre Dame. Notre Dame takes place in 1895, and this level is from TimeSplitters 2. This level is basically Jack de la Motte, I think his name was, puts a curse on Notre Dame, and all the dead rise only at night and take over basically the church, and he goes and captures a lot of maidens, and you have to go and save the maidens, help the hunchback defend Notre Dame, and then go and find Jack de la Motte and kill him, while at the same time retrieving the time crystal and obviously taking it back. Okay, so after that we have Aztec Ruins. Aztec Ruins, now this is where I'm going to kind of explain things. So I'm going to jump a little bit down to some other levels here, just because I need to explain how these all link. Okay, so Aztec Ruins is a Captain Ash level. Also, Scotland the Brave is a Captain Ash level, as well as Tomb. So, bear that in mind. I will be visiting those in a second. So, these all take place in different games. Aztec Ruins takes place in 1920 and is from TimeSplitters 2. Basically what it is Captain Ash is in a jungle with the stone golems and is trying to retrieve a time crystal. On the process of escaping, the stone golem grabs hold of Captain Ash and shakes his arm, and in the end tosses Captain Ash over the edge of a bridge while keeping the time crystal. Captain Ash then has to go through all the Aztec jungle and also a load of deadly puzzles down below in the temple to secure the time crystal and then defeat the stone golems. Followed then by, later on in the year, Scotland the Brave is the next one to follow on from Aztec Ruins. And Scotland the Brave takes place in 1924, so a few years later, and is in TimeSplitters Future Perfect. So this level is all about Captain Ash going to the islands, which basically is the level of Scotland the Brave, to rescue the Jungle Queen, his accomplice, and in the process he meets Cortez, who helps him on his quest, but also goes to find out how the time splitters are created, and in the end bumps into the time traveler Crow, and then their long journey begins there. But also manages to help Captain Ash find the Jungle Queen, and they're reunited. This is then followed on by Tomb. Tomb is in 1935, so this is a good few years later. It is in TimeSplitters 1. Now, TimeSplitters 1 story, there isn't a lot of backstory to the whole game. There really isn't any, to be honest. But this is all about Captain Ash venturing to the Egyptian tombs, and he goes down into the tombs, taking out many different zombies, cultists, teeth mummies, things like that along the way, to secure a bag and bring it back to his checkpoint. And that's literally all I can really explain when it comes to the TimeSplitters 1 level, because there isn't any story to it, I'm afraid. But that's the order of them. So for anyone that was always questioning what order the Captain Ash levels go in, Aztec Ruins is first, then Scotland the Brave, then Tomb. Right, moving back to the actual timeline again. The next one we have is Chicago. Chicago is in 1932, and it's from TimeSplitters 2. Now, this is also going to quickly link in with Tomb. So, there is a character in Chicago who is completely left my head now, but she is the female character you can also play if you're a second player, who I think is called Lady Jane. I think it's coming back to my head, something like that, who is also in Tomb. So she links in with Tomb later on, and she joins forces with Captain Ash later on in Tomb. But that's all I can say about that one, other than it's all about a guy who lost everything because of a gangster called Big Tony, and he goes to get his revenge on Big Tony by breaking into his club and in the end killing him, and also securing a time crystal. We then, after that, go on to, surprisingly, Tomb. I've already described Tomb, so I'm not going to describe it again. And we're now moving on to Village. So Village takes place in 1950 and is from TimeSplitters 1. Village is basically a village full of mutants, zombies, and things like that. And you play as a doctor, or two doctors in theory, and your objective is to clear out the streets full of zombies and mutants and find the bag and bring it back to your checkpoint. And that's it for Village. The next one we'll be moving on to is Mansion. So Mansion takes place in 1965, and this is from TimeSplitters 1. So Mansion is a mansion that's up in the hills, and you play as two characters. One is Mary Beth Casey, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And you need to go through the mansion, which is full of zombies, all kinds of different zombies, and moose heads that shoot at you in order to capture the bag and bring it back to your base. Now, I want to quickly go through some other backstory here, which people, again, question about. So, Mansion links with the Mansion of Madness and What Lies Below. Now, the reason why it links, and it's not in a huge way, is because of the second main character from the first Mansion, Mary Beth Casey, who is a relative of Jo Beth Casey from Mansion of Madness and What Lies Below. Now, I don't know precisely what kind of relative she is. I presume it'll be somebody down the family line quite a long way, as there is a good gap here, 1965 and 1994. There's a big gap there between each one, and the ages would be very different. So I'm not precisely sure on that one at the moment. I will get back to you, but I know that Mary Beth Casey and Jo Beth Casey are related in some shape or form. Once I figure that out, I will probably do a video discussing that and talking about all the different things of what's going on there. Right, after Mansion we have the Russian Connection, which is up here, and the Kalos Express. Now again, I'm going to be going through some linking things here so that you guys can understand. Okay, so first of all, the Russian Connection. This is all about basically the arch nemesis Kalos teaming up with the time traveler Crow, and they've taken over a old train station and are using it to train Kalos's men and also plan for Kalos to take over the world, as well as the time traveler stealing some of Kalos's men to come back with him to 1924 to help protect the island. Now, this level features Harry Tipper, and just because I didn't say at the very beginning, this takes place in 1969, and it's from TimeSplitters Future Perfect, both the Russian Connection and Kalos Express. And so Cortez meets up with Harry Tipper and goes through the whole of the base and Russian Connection to help find Kalos and help find Kitten Celeste, who is Harry Tipper's partner. Obviously, later on, he bumps into the Time Traveler as well, and the Time Traveler escapes, which then brings us onto the Kalos Express, which is Kalos's train, and you fight down the train until you find Kalos, who then tells you that Kitten Celeste is currently on the rail track and that they'll be running into her. Then you go and disable a rocket, which he was going to use to rule the world, and stop the train from killing Kitten Celeste. This then moves on to Chinese. Chinese happens about a year later, probably near the end of 1970, I would say. Harry Tipper is back again, accompanied by Lieutenant Christine Malone, and they go to a Chinese restaurant which is full of gangsters, and they go and take them all out and capture the bag and bring it back to their checkpoint. And that's the end of that one. This is then followed on by Atom Smasher. Sorry. Atom Smasher is from TimeSplitters 2. It happens in 1972, and Kalos captures Harry Tipper, and Harry Tipper fights through the facility, disabling Kalos's bombs that he has, and in the end finds Kalos, kills Kalos, and secures the time crystal. Lastly, I just want to say Chinese is from TimeSplitters 1, in case I forgot to mention that. So, this is the way this works. This is the one that so many people question about, the Harry Tipper levels. Because most people I know say that they don't understand how in TimeSplitters 2, when they play Atom Smasher, they kill Kalos at the end, and then in Future Perfect, they're fighting Kalos with Harry Tipper, and they just don't understand how he's come back to life, basically. So this timeline here is basically describing to you and making as much detail and giving you all the sense that you need to understand that this, the Russian Connection and Kalos Express, happens before the events of Atom Smasher in TimeSplitters 2. So when you kill Kalos in TimeSplitters 2, you have killed him. He hasn't come back to life in the next game. He is actually dead. He is gone. Just to clarify this. And when you see in TimeSplitters Future Perfect in the Kalos Express, when you defeat Kalos and he flies up in the air and says he'll have his revenge is in Atom Smasher. So that clarifies the whole of that up. That's a big hot topic, that one, that people find difficult to understand, and now I've described it to you, and I'm happy about that, because that's what I needed to do. I needed to clarify that up for you all. I keep thinking this in my head at the moment. I can't remember earlier if I said, when I was going on about the Scotland the Brave level and that, You Take the High Road and Future Perfect also happens at the same time as Scotland the Brave. I just wanted to venture back to that because I couldn't remember if I said that or not. It's really, really hot in the UK at the moment, so my brain's going a bit all haywire, so sorry about that. Right, anyway, moving on to Chemical Plant is the next one that follows on from Atom Smasher. So Chemical Plant takes place in 1985 and is from TimeSplitters 1. In Chemical Plant, the two people you play as, Velvet, I remember, is one of the characters, Unfortunately, I don't really remember the names of the TimeSplitters 1 characters as much, because they never really, how should I say it, they never really took on to me that much, because you don't know a lot about them. um, but they both go into a chemical plant and take out a load of gangsters and people that have taken over this chemical plant for their own use. Um, and you secure the time crystal or bag or whatever it's supposed to be, and take it to your base, and that's the end. um, After this, we follow on with Siberia. Now, this is Siberia from TimeSplitters 2, the first ever level of TimeSplitters 2. Some people can confuse this with TimeSplitters Future Perfect's multiplayer map. Don't confuse it with that. This is just the story, remember. So this is from TimeSplitters 2. This happens in 1990. Some people at the base are experimenting with like different weaponry and mutating different soldiers and things like that underground. And in the end, they end up having a whole underground facility of zombies and weird mutant guys, which I don't really know what they're supposed to be, so I can't say. And in the end, you come through the time portal and you fight all the general people, the soldiers protecting the underground facility outside, taking out all these people around the dam. You then work your way down underground. You then visit the underground facility, which is full of zombies and experimented on things. Take them all out, find the time splitter, kill the time splitter that was there, secure the time crystal, only then to find out that the base is overrun by all these different zombies and mutants as they manage to get out. Then a new security force comes along to try and wipe out the mess and contain it, and you work your way to the top of the dam where you fight against a extremely armored helicopter, defeating that, and then you go through the time portal with the time crystal. So that's that one all summed up. So the next one, when we follow on from that, is the Mansion of Madness and what lies below. So the Mansion of Madness is basically the best level of TimeSplitters for me. I absolutely adore this level. It is brilliant in every sense. Horror, great. Music, great. Literally zombies, great. Everything is just perfect about this level, and I love it, and I will never forget it. Also, seeing as TimeSplitters 1 was my first ever TimeSplitters, being able to see a moose head come back again in TimeSplitters was such a brilliant sight for me. And this time it actually came to life and properly attacked you, unlike in TimeSplitters 1 where they shoot at you, which was awesome. And I loved the link there as well. Obviously, again, there's a link between Mansion with the moose heads that shoot at you versus the moose that comes out of the wall and actually properly attacks you. So, the Mansion of Madness is about JBF Casey going to the mansion to try and get some pictures of the zombies and experiments that go on in the mansion, so she can join her friend's gang. She then bumps into Cortez, and they fight through the mansion, facing lots of ungodly horrors such as deer head things, worms, zombies, ghosts, all sorts of things. On their way to find the time traveler in Cortez's case, and in the end they fight a huge monster known as the Princess at the end of the level, and go through the kitchen route, killing lots of undead cows and butchers, and end up going down underground into the next level, which is what lies below, which is basically all the experiments that they ever did were down below underground. And again, they fight through all these zombies and mutant things in order to find the time traveler. JBF ends up getting caught. Cortez then has to fight his way out to get to JBF, who then later on is being sacrificed to the princess. And Cortez kills the princess and ends up getting JBF back. Then they go to find the time traveler, who escapes and blows up the facility. And that's the end of that level, basically. Um, so yes, that is the Mansion of Madness and What Lies Below, which happens in 1994 and is from TimeSplitters Future Perfect. Moving on to Docs. Docs is from TimeSplitters 1. It's in the year 2000, which is actually kind of convenient because TimeSplitters 1 came out in the year 2000, which is a bit of a coincidence, but there you go. There's not a lot I can really say about this level other than, I think I'm getting this right, Olega, something like that, Strom, and her other companion fight through the docks, which are occupied by the army and other weird thugs as well, in order to secure a briefcase and bring it back to base. That's all I can say about that one again. We're then moving on to Cyberden. Cyberden is from TimeSplitters 1. It takes place in 2005. Cyberden is a underground facility of tunnels, like tunnel networks, with lots of genetically modified humans who have cybernetic things connected to them. You play as Deacon Swain and his accomplice, and you go through the level and taking out all these cybernetic people, trying to secure the bag and bring it back to your base. I feel like I'm saying the same thing for TimeSplitters 1 levels, but that is literally what they are. Sorry if it sounds really dull, that. But then moving on to Neo Tokyo. This is from TimeSplitters 2. This happens in 2019. So, at the beginning of Neo Tokyo, the person you play as, Ghost, is framed for doing a crime which he didn't commit by another group of ninja people who are protecting a time splitter and a crystal, and also experimenting on others in order to figure out how the time splitter works. And they end up getting the police to track down Ghost. Ghost ends up stealthing around the city, following one of the ninjas underground, breaking into their base, killing the time splitter and its hostage, securing the time crystal, and taking out the leader and clearing his name of being a criminal. And that's the end of that. We then move on after this to Planet X. Now, this is Planet X from TimeSplitters 1. Don't confuse it with Planet X from TimeSplitters 2. Okay? But there is a link here, and then we'll get on to it. So, Planet X is from TimeSplitters 1. It happens in the year 2020. This is the beginning of the invasion where the humans invade Planet X, which is full of lots of different types of aliens who are taking over this world and protecting things, and also planning to wipe out the humans, which obviously the humans don't like very much. So in the end you end up going down there and taking out a lot of the aliens, destroying their plans, picking up their data that they have in order to do their invasion, and bring it back to your base. Now, the link that I want to go through here is Planet X happens then. The war then continues on in TimeSplitters 2 to return to Planet X in 2280, where the war is still continuing on, and obviously the aliens are actually properly fighting the humans now. And yes, I will get on to the rest of Return to Planet X later, because I don't want to say it all now. But there is a link between them. It's just there's a huge gap in between. So there you go. After Planet X, we're moving on to Spaceways. Spaceways is from TimeSplitters 1 and takes place in 2035. Spaceways is basically a huge airport where aliens take other aliens up into space and they transport them to other planets. So they do some rather dodgy things up there with partnering with other aliens in order to try and do some dodgy things to the human race, which you don't know a lot about, I'm afraid, but there you go. So in the end, Greetle and R108, I think his name was, go and attack Spaceways, taking out all the staff and aliens and things that are around, securing the package and bringing it back to their base. We're then moving on to breaking and entering, which is down here, along with also Eugenics, which I think I've got the name right. If I got that wrong, guys, then please let me know. This is from TimeSplitters Future Perfect, and this happens in the year 2052. So, breaking and entering is all about... Hang on a minute. Sorry, guys, I wish this didn't pop up. Breaking and entering is basically a facility where Crow, the time traveler, sets up a place in order to try and create humans into time splitters, and he is not quite successful at this point. He's got to a stage where he's getting close, but he's not successful. Breaking and entering is where Cortez ends up locating a woman named Amy Chen, who's also breaking in to try and find out some stuff about Crow and basically show him up to the cops so you can arrest him and put him away for what he's doing. And they break into the building further down, getting through the security defenses, and they end up finding each other and working together. And then we move on to Eugenics, which is all about Crow being underground, giving all the different people their jobs and what they need to do, and how they are basically experimenting with all those different poor people and turning them into time splitters. And in the end, these experimented on humans, which are half time splitter, half human, also known as freaks, are taken over the facility, and Cortez needs to go through the facility, taking out the freaks and also the staff that are around the security team, in order to find Crow. Then at the end, just before he beats Crow, he has a massive time anomaly where all of the different versions of himself jump out and start activating security measures and things like that, which I'm not going to go through a lot of. And then he joins with forces with Amy Chen again, who somehow comes out of nowhere, just like to point out. And they go and fight Crow, who in the end ends up escaping anyway. But there you go. So that's that. We then move on to Machine Wars and something to cry about up here. So Machine Wars is all about basically Cortez taking over one of the robots, R110, who's an awesome character, by the way. And they end up going through this huge war, which is humans versus robots and other humans that have robotics on them. And it's a very dangerous war, this one. And he fights alongside the humans, taking out a lot of the robots and their defenses, and meeting with his other self as well along the way. And they end up using a Goliath robot to take out some air defenses and break into Crow's base. This is then followed on by something to crow about. Where you break into Crow's base, you end up going through the base and discovering that Crow has a huge time splitter army that he is in the middle of making, but is not ready to be brought out yet into the open. Cortez ends up destroying this and getting rid of any evidence of the time splitters ever existing, so that nobody could pick it up and try and make them again. He then goes on to Crow's mansion, palace, underground, and finds out that Crow has turned himself into a giant slug time splitter monster thing. And tries to kill Crow but fails, and ends up going back to 1924 to try and find the crystals. This is from TimeSplitters Future Perfect again, and happens in 2243. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is Return to Planet X. Return to Planet X is from TimeSplitters 2 and happens in the year 2280. You're playing as a soldier who ends up taking a hit from the alien UFOs and ends up crashing into the ground. He then fights his way through all the aliens, trying to stop the invasion of the aliens against the humans, taking out a lot of their facility backup stuff, all their UFOs and things that they use to fight the humans with, and ends up finding the time crystal and going through the time portal. That's about all you really have to say with that one, other than the aliens at the end of it do actually end up losing. That's just a little story aspect that you know. There's not a lot more I can say with that one though. After that we move on to Robot Factory. Robot Factory is from TimeSplitters 2 and happens in the year 2315. Robot Factory is all about Greetel Mark II and R109 invading a factory where all these robots are being made by the machinist, I believe his name is, who's like a little kid robot, who's breeding an army of robots to destroy humans again. It's always humans, and take over. And in the end, Greetel Mark II and R109 go into the facility, destroy the robots, destroy the facility itself, stopping the production line of all the robots, and in the end fight the machinist at the end and kill him, and secure the time crystal and go through the portal. Finally, we come on to this. Now I'm going to do a bit of explaining before I go on to this. The reason why I have Space Station up here split from Time to Split and the Hooded Man, even though they happen in the same time period, is because one's from a different game to the other. This is just so that people don't get confused, because some people might not have played TimeSplitters 2 but have played Future Perfect or the other way around, and they won't know where one of the levels has come from. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. Up here we have Space Station, which happens in the year 2401. This is from TimeSplitters 2. So at the very end of TimeSplitters 2, when you come through the portal as Cortez and you have all the time crystals collected from your missions throughout TimeSplitters 2, you give them to Corporal Heart, who puts them on a computer. During this time, you have a time splitter stuck on a door with all the others trying to get to you and kill you as well. They end up breaking through. There's a huge fight between Corporal Heart, Cortez, and the time splitters. In the end, the time splitter manages to launch its lightning bolts at Corporal Heart, killing her in the process. Cortez then gathers the time crystals, goes down to the station's self-destruct mechanism, blows it up, and flies away, destroying all of the time splitters' ships along the way, while flying away down to Earth. We then move on to this one, Time to Split, which is a direct pickup from where TimeSplitters 2 Space Station left off. So, Time to Split is from TimeSplitters Future Perfect and happens again in the year 2401. Cortez has just come back down to Earth from the space station with the time crystals and telling the general that he has them. His ship ends up getting shot down by the time splitters and crash lands in the middle of one of the canyons. The soldiers end up escorting Cortez back to base, as he is the most important person in the field at that point with all the time crystals, which are obviously extremely important as they are what will allow the humans to wipe out the time splitters. And so he is escorted back while meeting a lot of hooded figure men along the way who they don't understand why they're there or anything like that. And they end up moving along through all of these canyons, watching the time splitter mothership being destroyed. And at the end, Cortez makes it back to base with the time crystals, and then you carry on with Future Perfect story. Later on in TimeSplitters Future Perfect story, we have the Hooded Man, which also takes place in 2401. This is where Cortez goes back in time through a portal, dressed as the hooded figure, in order to protect himself from the past in Time's Split. and make sure that that version of him gets to the base with the time crystals. And Cortez ends up going through the canyons, killing all the hooded figures who you find out are fighting for Crow and have been sent in time to destroy Cortez. Taking them all out along the way, also killing TimeSplitters and things along the way, and you find out that the person who destroyed the TimeSplitter mothership was actually Cortez in the Hooded Man. And in the end, yes, you help defend Cortez all the way through the canyons from before and kill all the enemies around, and that's it basically. And then Cortez gets back to base and you go back and stop the Crow. So that's it when we get to the end of the timeline. As you can see, we've gone through them all. I made the links where I needed to in certain places. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, mostly because it was very difficult for me to actually explain and describe 2 levels in the story because they didn't link with Captain Ash as such. I'm going back to this again with Scotland the Brave, You Take the High Road and Future Perfect, but this time I'm only looking at You Take the High Road and Future Perfect. I've already described Scotland the Brave. So again, in the year 1924, from TimeSplitters Future Perfect, You Take the High Road, Cortez ends up coming back in time from something to crow about in order to find the time crystals. He brings the robot R110 with him. They end up going under the island, underwater, and find an underwater facility, killing all of Crow's men along the way in order to try and find these time crystals. They work their way through the streets that they have down there in the little city, killing all the men and stuff, and at the end meet the hooded men that are going in time to the future, to the Hooded Man to kill Cortez, and that's where that one comes in play. Right, then moving back from the Hooded Man, Cortez comes back to 1924 for the level Future Perfect. This is where Cortez is again joined by R110 and goes to destroy the time crystals. He finds the time crystals underground, picks them up, brings them back. Crow ends up coming to that time period as well in his weird worm mutated form, and ends up actually beating Cortez the first time because there wasn't enough firepower to defeat Crow. He also kills R110. Then Cortez ends up going back in time to seeing himself coming down with R110 from before, and they end up joining forces to defeat Crow. They defeat Crow, and the time crystals get destroyed. In the process of the time crystals getting destroyed, Cortez and the other Cortez and also R110 are teleported, and they come back to the year 2401 in the base up top where Anya and the Jimra are. And the crystals are destroyed, destroying the time machine, destroying the arm bracelet that Cortez has, sending R110 back to his time period, and also destroying any time spare that ever existed, and changing the world back to what it was, bringing back to life people that actually died and things like that. And that's it. That is the whole entire TimeSplitters storyline in one, told to you in a nice, reasonably quick way. I'll admit the video is long for that aspect, and I understand that, but there are a lot of things to cover. It's 3 games in one, and it's quite a huge story to go over. But I've just discussed it to you guys in the most simple, best way I can, and tried to make it as short as I could. So anyway, I hope that answers a lot of questions for certain people. I'll probably be doing separate videos to talk about certain things in regards to the storyline and how they link later on. But for now, that's what I'm going to keep it at. So this was TimeSplitters storyline of all 3 games. I hope you guys enjoyed, especially the TimeSplitters fans. This is probably going to help you out a lot. Obviously, like I said, I'll leave a download link for this picture in the description for you guys, so you guys can go and pick it up and use it for yourselves. So, first of all, before I do the last outro, I want to say thank you for sticking around. If you did to the end, I appreciate it. I hope you guys found the video entertaining. Sorry about the pop-ups I had in the corner. Unfortunately, those just are automatically on, and it's quite annoying, but there you go. Hopefully it didn't make too much of a difference to the video for you guys. Lastly, please don't try and steal this photo and make it as your own, because that's wrong and actually copyright, and I'd rather you didn't do that. And I did put a lot of time and effort into it, so please try and not do that. And I do have my name in the bottom corner below, so I can prove fully that this was mine. Anyway, I don't expect many people to do that. Lastly, I hope that I didn't confuse anyone along the way while making this, because some of these, for example, Chinese, which is 1970, and Atom Smasher, which is 1972, Atom Smasher is actually in front on the timeline of Chinese. This is due to space problems again, in particular this, and so I couldn't put it specifically before it. I'm sorry about that, but hopefully it didn't confuse you too much. So hopefully it was alright. It's the best I could do though, I'm afraid. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, I really appreciate it. I spent an awful lot of time doing my research and things for this video, and getting it all set up for you guys, going through, getting the right photos, getting the right timeline look, going through my research of all the levels and how they link and things like that. And I've got a huge whole basis in my head now of all of it. And I hope you guys appreciate that. So it took a long time to do this, so I really would appreciate it if you guys could like it. It would mean the world to me. Otherwise, if you're new and you like this video, please check out the rest of my channel for my other videos, which I do lots of different games like Star Wars, Call of Duty Zombies, Call of Duty in general, Harry Potter, Penumbra, and so on. And there's plenty more coming out as well. I obviously do TimeSplitters as well. And if you enjoy my videos on there, then feel free to subscribe. And if you keep let's try it again. If you subscribe, then you get to keep up to date with the latest videos that I bring out. So there you go, guys. I hope you guys found this alright. Sorry if I got a little bit confused and things along the way. It's absolutely boiling here in the UK, and my mind is kind of just thinking about heat. So I hope it was alright for you guys, and I appreciate you guys sticking around for the video. Other than that, I will see you guys in my next video. See you then, guys. Bye.